True Detective Season 3, Episode 3, The Big Never. We get our first look at Roland in the 90s timeline. I love with the actors here, they just take their wigs off from the 80s timeline to have them look like their 90s characters. It's actually what they look like in real life, which is kind of funny. You see the receding hairlines. And I gotta say, I'm really enjoying Stephen Dorff's performance of Roland West so far. I think he's killing it. And he's playing that nice line of tough, but also super likable. And he's super consistent. He knows what his character is very well, you can just tell. So we also see he's being questioned by these two cops as well, as is Wayne. And I like they're showing it from his perspective now in this episode. He really is the star of this episode. So they ask Roland why they got to the house so late, and Roland says a line, "I'm a little fuzzy. Maybe Wayne has a better memory." So this obviously, again, another tease at where his memory was at in this timeline with Wayne. And it also shows you that Roland's full of it here. He has a fine memory. He's just hiding something. And that's what this episode's big purpose was to me and really sets up was, what did Roland and Wayne know about that they're hiding from this police report that clearly these two cops are looking for now? So in 2015, we see Wayne with his son at the doctor, and he's talking about his days he had where he appeared at Shoepick Lane that we saw the cliffhanger of last episode. And he can't totally remember why he went there at that specific moment, but I really dig the tension between him and his son here. When his son tricks him into saying that his wife actually drove him home, and then Wayne's like, "What are we playing, gotcha now?" And the son goes back, "What are we playing, detective now?" So you see there's clearly resentment there with the son where he knows his dad falls into these traps of getting obsessed with a case and not paying attention to his own health needs and his family's. So in the 80s storyline, we see Wayne starts thinking about, why would the kids, Julie and William, lie about hanging out with the Boyle boy? What were they really doing? And it has a nice cut here to the 90s timeline with Roland's narration. And he says to the cops, "Wayne had idea kids were telling stories, and he was correct. You all screwed a good detective. You know that, right?" I love the angle this here too, to learn that Roland still has Wayne's back at this time. And he's like, "I tried to get him transferred over here twice, but it was blocked." And the cop we all hate on the left there, the bad cop, he's like, "I feel like we should stay on point." And Roland perfectly says, "I'm making a point, son." Go Roland. Those are the best lines he presents too, when he steps his foot down. Not afraid of confrontation. So then back to the 1980 story. It's confirmed now from Ronnie himself that he wasn't hanging with Julie and Will as much as the dad thought. The dad thought they were going there 4 times a week. So Wayne and Roland decide to re-look through the kids' stuff. And Wayne finds some strange notes in Julie's notebook, saying things like, "I will always keep you safe." So this has to be someone that was taking advantage of their bad family life and comforting them in a messed up way. That was their lure, their bait, while all this crazy stuff was happening with their parents. So then Wayne brilliantly makes a connection here to figure out why there's a Hoyt food bag there, and it leads him to finding out that Lucy worked there. So just jumping ahead a bit, I want to stay on that story in the 80s. Wayne follows up and goes to the Hoyt factories. And we learn the Hoyt founder started an outreach program for sick children. Anything with the kids at this point is suspicious. So Wayne wants info on the employees that worked at that plant when they got hired. And we learn Mr. Hoyt has been in Africa. I feel this isn't the last time we're gonna hear of Mr. Hoyt. He's gonna be a big player in this. There's gotta be some reason they're mentioning this outreach program for kids that was started. There's gotta be some sick thing behind it. And also we see now at the office, Wayne's writing on the case board, "Why lie?" So that's a big, big question on his mind for the kids. So it's smart detective work. It's following up on the thought of the victims, where their mind was to lead them to the perpetrator. But a quick little thing they shoved in this scene here with Roland and Wayne at their desks. A lady calls Roland and Wayne and says Julie's being held in a snake farm. And the lady says she has dreams that always come true. Wayne and Roland really did not take this call seriously at all whatsoever. Wonder if this was a misstep on their part. It's probably a result of their current climate where, because this case became so public, all these calls and threats, they're not taken as seriously. It's just overfill. But maybe this woman did know something and they should have at least seen what she had to say. And then Roland writes on this board, "Secret friend. Will played a lot," he says, "but no one played with him they know of." So who is this mysterious person playing with Will, and who gave Julie that doll? And where did they go after school every day when they were really supposed to be at the neighbor's house? So backing up in the episode a bit, let's go to the 90s storyline where Roland says he doesn't see Wayne as much. And he said, "We were good friends. Once we stopped working together, we just stopped." Sometimes it's like that with people. Preach, Roland. That's good little writing here, and it's very true and accurate, where you can work with someone so closely and develop a bond through that, but the minute you stop working together, somehow it just goes away. It's gone. Your friendship stops too. even though you don't want it to, but it just inevitably does. So we also see here Amelia flaunting herself to the cops, trying to get more info on Julie's prints. And she gets some big information here that the prints were just on the shelves, not behind the pharmacy. So this is pretty much confirming she was probably just a customer, not robbing the place. And then we see now Wayne at Walmart with his kids, and he turns his back for a second and Rebecca's missing. And it shows his state of paranoia he's even in from this case, and it's also affected him dramatically about just protection of kids. And he's freaking out, and he's yelling at the customer service woman to give him the mic. And Rebecca appears, everything's fine, but he flips at her, and she's adorable, especially when she starts breaking out and crying. Great casting on the kids too. They're really innocent and they're good at acting. So then interesting here we see in the 80s storyline when Amelia and Wayne were in the search party, and they're talking about that quote from her class. And she thinks it means because we're in time and of time, but to name time, you separate yourself when you name it. We can't be separated from time. And she kind of sees it off-putting when Wayne says, oh, I thought it just meant like the name of God. You know how the Hebrews aren't supposed to say God's name? So they clearly have a different perspective on things, and she might not see him as outside of the box thinking as she might have hoped. And little stuff like that in life too can hint towards trouble that might spew out of that opposite ends of thinking in a marriage. So it brilliantly then cuts to the 90s scene when they actually get in a fight. And Wayne says to Amelia, are you drunk? And she says, well, this detective took me out to eat. And then he's just like, ah, terrific. And he's just jealous here. He's not thinking outside the box here with her. Should be knowing that she's not doing it to make him jealous. She's doing it to get information like she said she was going to do. So there's trust issues there. And he's like, I didn't get anything you wanted at Walmart. Don't come in here bouncy about all this stuff with the case. Why don't you go check on the kids? So this is that man thing going on. Doesn't like her doing her thing on the job, and he has to be at home with the kids and watch them at Walmart. And she's like, I'm not gonna stop, Wayne. And he also doesn't really support her reading the book at all. He doesn't like the mention of his name in it. So it adds an interesting weight to their relationship where it looks so perfect in the beginning in the 80s, and you see in the 90s where they collide. And where Wayne has so much pride there, just as a man too, where he's the detective, she's not in his eyes. Why is he watching these kids? And he acts really immature to it by saying too they didn't get anything she wanted at Walmart. Kind of crazy there. And this was also hinted at in the beginning of the season when he said to Roland in those chairs when they almost shot that fox, when Wayne's like, I would never put a wife and kids through the craziness that's me. So this is it coming out now. And the actress of Amelia, I've been hard on her the last 2 episodes, but I'm warming up to her in this episode. I thought she did great. So really good to see. Showed more versatility here. So then in the 80s storyline, we find Wayne. The best parts here when he's just looking through the woods, tracking what he does best, finds dice in the wood. Clearly the game that Will was playing. And the music here is great in the background. Again, it's just not too much, not overbearing, but builds enough suspense. True Detective's always been consistent with that across the seasons. And then Wayne finds a bag of toys, and blood is on the rocks around it. And Wayne can make the connection that's where William died, and someone carried him into that cave to put him in that communion position. And what's interesting, and they show perfectly with the shot, is when they come out of the woods and he meets Roland, they see it leads to a farm road. And Roland's like, no one talked to this guy who's at this farmhouse here. It's not even on our maps. So they go to this farmer, and he tells them, I already talked to you guys. Man came the next day. And he said it was a man in a suit, and he showed him a badge. So you gotta wonder, is this a former cop who did this, or a current cop that could actually be a suspect in this, and not telling everyone else for some reason that he talked to this man? Very interesting. And this farmer says he saw a nice brown car with a black man in it and a white woman. So this is huge information and actually leads really well into the 2015 story. And he also doesn't let them search the place, the farmer. So this guy's super weird, but I still think he's a red herring. But in 2015, this is where the interview kind of starts showing her cards a bit. And she says to Wayne, we have people who said they were never questioned by the police. And what I like about these scenes in this storyline in 2015, you really feel it in this season. It feels like they're actually just showing you her show is like a Netflix documentary being filmed in that interview portion of it. So again, it's very with the times, and it's cool to see it from that perspective. It's like if you saw Wayne just literally in a documentary about this case years later. And she says to Wayne, we have 2 people saying they saw a very nice brown sedan driving around, and it was seen driving away from Devil's Den the day of the murder. And one person said they told the police about this, but no one ever came back. And there's no mention of the sedan in field reports. So this is huge. This is the same car the farmer was talking about. So we know they knew about it. And what made this car ultra suspicious to people, and you can realize everyone had a common idea of it is because it was peacocking out there because it's a new upscale car, which is not usually in that area. So this has to be the person. And this is that black man with the scar they're talking about. And he wore this suit and he was never questioned. And she comes hard here and goes, this alone points to flaws in the investigation from the beginning. Don't you think so? This is hitting a soft spot for Wayne. He's like, what's going on? You find new evidence? You looking for Julie? So we're starting to really get somewhere between the two of them, but the sun stops it. Damn, I wanted to see that keep going, but they got to hold some of the reveals for the rest of the season. But really good scene. So we also see in the 80s timeline, the bag of toys had those dolls in them, and they also had the Han and Leia Star Wars action figures. That's the second time they're referencing Star Wars. I wonder if that will come into this mystery as well somehow. As if you remember the last episode, the kid who gave them the Halloween route said his favorite movie was Star Wars and he dressed like Luke Skywalker. There's gotta be a reason they keep mentioning Star Wars. I just don't know what yet. And then we see the trash man gets attacked by these crazy locals and he's totally accused wrongly of messing with these kids. And he's like, I served, protected this for you guys and your rights. And they're all a bunch of hypocrites. I mean, the guy who's pointing a gun at him has the American flag on his hat and he's putting it at a veteran. But it's gonna be interesting because you see later on in this episode, this makes the trash man really pissed. Rightfully so. But it looks like he grabs a bag of guns. That's obviously gonna cause something bad. And I think that might be setting up, if I'm gonna predict, him being a scapegoat even more and maybe being the one who gets wrongly convicted. So we see in the 90s timeline Tom for the first time, and Roland goes to visit him at his house and he asks him if he supports them reopening the case, and Tom completely understands because of the fingerprints they found. We learned Lucy died 2 years ago. He wishes she had heard about this, and that Tom's been sober for 5 years. And we learn he's found God, and Tom asks Roland in a humorous scene, would you pray with me? It was so funny when he grabs Roland's hand, and Roland's face while they're praying is so great. And it's important what Tom's saying in his prayers. He's saying, save me from anger, save me from resentment. This just shows me all these things are boiling up in him still. He's just pushing them back through prayer, but we know he's gonna snap again, especially finding about these fingerprints. And remember, the interview in 2015 says something in the 90s happened with the dad and Julie. We don't know what that was. It's gotta be something bad. I don't know how if they crossed paths again or what. So we'll see. So then we get a really awesome scene in current time where Wayne is in his office obsessing over the case again. He's got all the files out and it shows that handgun on his desk just out in the open here, which is very disturbing and chilling. Is that how close he is to thinking about offing himself? My God. And he's saying to himself, this farmer talked about the brown sedan, so he's trying to remember these little things, and they're important, and he's revisiting missed spots. So it's exciting to see this. They'd hinted this season was going to be about that, with him finding those little things as a guy who doesn't really have much memory left. So it's kind of cool seeing it. It's very fresh and original. And now he's freaking hallucinating, and his wife appears, and she's saying some crazy lines. Are you awakening to what you withheld? I'm imagining something in the case that they've been hinting at this whole episode that him and Roland know they're not sharing for some reason. And she says, did you confuse reacting with feeling? Did you mistake compulsion for freedom? Could this be referring to how he might have badly behaved to Rebecca, his daughter, and why they don't talk anymore? And she goes, did you harden your heart against what you loved most? I'm thinking that's her talking about herself and their marriage. And she says, did you think you could go on and not look back? And he's like, please, not like this. So he's filled with guilt about this. All these things she's bringing up. This really is just his conscience speaking. And she says, you're worried what they will find. What you left in the woods. Finish it. So this adds super mystery. This is a creepy, haunting scene. The camera work was especially great here, zooming in and out on his face, showing you his state of mind, and really feeling that crazy vibe. And again, as Ali's been doing, the acting's fantastic. And Amelia acting here was great too. So what did he leave in those woods? Why was he covering for somebody if it seems that way? Is there race involved with this too? It has to be important that they mentioned this was a black man in this car. Does he know this man? Is he this man? There's a lot of theories you can have for this. This was the best scene of the show yet for me. Really amped it up and gives you that feeling in your bones like, oh, I cannot wait till next episode. So then back in the 90s, we see Wayne's at work and he gets a message from Roland, the lieutenant, that he wants to see him. And a great little moment of directing here to just show Wayne look really quickly at the picture of his family, knowing if he takes up on this offer, he's gonna mess his family life up. And then we jump back to the 80s, and at the Purcell house, Tom and Lucy don't recognize any of the toys that were in that bag. And then Wayne looks through the baby album they hadn't seen and sees that William is in the praying position that they found him dead in. and it's from his communion. Has the person who did this seen this pic before? Did they take this pic? Were they at his communion? Was it a priest? Questions, questions, questions. And then back to the 90s episode, Roland comes and meets Wayne at the veterans bar. And Roland really shined in this episode. He definitely stole this one for me, especially in this scene. I love just the way he's asking for a Southern Comfort. And he's like, I want a Southern Comfort, mother effer. And he's telling Wayne, new task force, I'm in charge. And Wayne's like, that promotion for merit, or did it come with the pigmentation? And what Roland says back to this, I lacked a big mouth. Hell, with affirmative action, you could have been my boss by now. Obviously, this is him also admitting to Wayne he knows Wayne's more qualified and deserving of a position like this. And Wayne comes in harsh here. If I was clumsy enough to get shot, maybe I would be playing golf, calling old buddies up like I'm doing them a favor. Whew, brutal. Wonder if he's just talking in general about how most cops get good gigs, or if he's actually referring directly to Roland. Did Roland get shot? We will see. And Roland's like, you feel like being a detective again. That's something we were okay at. And Wayne just immediately goes, I'm sorry about the pigmentation line. And Roland's like, no, you're not. And Wayne goes, half sorry. Love this writing, and I love this friendship and relationship. They really are buddies for real. And like I said in the last episode, I love they can fight and then immediately say sorry to each other and get along. Like, they get each other too. And that's the special thing about this season. This is the first season of True Detective to me that has the heart. That's the best part about it. And it has some hope here at the end. And now he's joining him again. So a nice little hopeful ending. And it makes you root for the two of them together. I like that. So this episode for me was much better than episode 2. The stuff is really now set up to explode. I feel we're going to get a big moment in the next episode because we'll be hitting the halfway point of the season. They got to go for the kill now and let some stuff now climax in certain ways. And I really liked in this episode seeing Roland's perspective of the story. I didn't think they would do that. I'm happy him and Wayne still get along in the 90s story and they're going to work together again. I just wonder where their relationship's at in 2015. That's what makes this 3 timeline story riveting. Seeing how all these relationships around Wayne grow and change. It's a cool way to learn about somebody through time. And it adds all these questions. What happened between him and Becca? How did him and his wife leave off? Who played with those kids? What did Wayne leave in the woods and not report? Why did he do that? Who's in that brown sedan? And these are all questions that are going through everyone's heads, which is great. If that's happening and the show is effective in doing its job. It's a detective show. We should all feel like detectives. And it's working. Here's my quick little wild theories. Maybe the interviewer in 2015 is Julie, and she's following up on the case and mad that it wasn't done as well as she thought it could have been. Or maybe she's someone who knew Julie. And also, theory-wise, maybe Wayne did at some point and forgot, found out who the killer really was, and covered for him in his memory, and losing his memory kind of helped with the guilt of doing that. Or is it Wayne? That would be crazy too. I don't think he killed the kids, but maybe there's just something he knows that he didn't even realize he was helping with causing it. I don't know. It's all far-fetched, but let me know your theories down below. I'd love to hear them. This episode for me is a 9.1. Really good. Let me know down below what you thought of this episode. I read every comment, and I try to respond as many as I can. And please subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of True Detective. I'll be reviewing every episode this season. My review goes up right after the episode airs, so you don't want to miss one. And please follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. And I'll see you next time.